Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you being out here again today. It was a great evening last night for those of you that were able to join us and heard a lot of positive comments in terms of the ability to interact and network and get a chance to meet folks across the various advisory councils that we have here. We certainly have thought quite a bit about this event. We've put a lot of effort into our advisory councils over the last few years. And as we, we're always struggling with making sure that we're using you folks to our best advantage in some ways and to your best advantage. And it really, I think, is contained in the very words advisory. We do need your help, your support, your advice and counsel as we move ahead. The video there is we thought a little bit about what we hope to gain out of this day is we wanted to make sure that you understand obviously some of the things that we have accomplished. There's a lot that we have to be proud of in terms of the things that have happened at Villanova and at the School of Business, and it was evident there from some of the comments. But we also realize that we have challenges as well. And so when we put that video together, and some of the stars are in the audience, and we appreciate your taking the time to do this, we asked our students, we asked faculty, we asked people that are recruiting here, some of which are alums, to tell us a little bit, frankly, about what they think they want from us. You know, what will help us become a better business school? What do you need as a student to succeed? What do you need as a faculty member to succeed? What attracts you to a place like Villanova? But what do we need to do to continue to make sure you advance your career? And as a recruiter, when you come and hire a Villanova student, what do you expect out of that student? So those were unscripted comments from those three groups in particular, just to help us tee up the conversation today. To give you something to think about as we're moving forward. I'm going to have a chance later this morning to provide some more comments in my perspective around some of the things that are important to us and some of the challenges we face. But we really appreciate your being here today. We're looking forward to a high energy day. We have a lot of time built in this morning and certainly this afternoon in your individual meetings for some feedback and for dialogue back and forth. So again, thank you very much for being with us this morning. I do want to run through some of the things that we have on the agenda so you know where we're going to. A couple things, though, I want to point out that are on your tables. Each of you have a copy of the book Googled. This book is part of our one book program, Read to Lead program that we have that is actually sponsored by Ernst & Young. We're very appreciative of their support for this particular program. When we started our new Business Dynamics course, which is the freshman course in our new curriculum, we wanted to add, we wanted our freshmen to think about something as they were coming into the program. So over the summer, they receive a copy of a book. They're asked to read it, and early on in the first semester, there's discussion going on about this particular book. I know we have an executive coming in from Google later this term as well. So that book is used as a way to help frame some of the conversation in the Business Dynamics course. So we wanted you to have a copy of that. The last couple of years, we used a book about Starbucks, Pour Your Heart Into It as well, and it's been a very successful program for us. So that is yours as a little complimentary gift from us. The other item that I think is also quite valuable is we have compiled the contact information of everyone that is on our advisory councils, and that's contained in a book also at your place. Now, I do want to point out that this is for this particular audience. We're not mass mailing these to other people, so we're very protective of this, and we're going to maintain a high level of confidentiality around that as well. But we certainly thought that each of you would appreciate the chance to know who's on all of our advisory councils and have the information you might need to connect with someone after this session is over. So those two items should be found at your table. In terms of our approach for today, our first session is going to be with Father Peter and members of the senior leadership team here on campus. We know that what comes up occasionally when we're having our advisory council meetings are a number of questions around certainly the university, the strategic direction, but also around admissions. So we have Steve Merritt, who's heads up our, he's Dean of Enrollment Management here. He's going to be on the panel as well. Mike O'Neill, who's Vice President of University Advancement, is also on the panel. And Steve Fugali, who is our Chief Information Officer, is also part of that. So those are all areas we know that issues come up occasionally in our conversations, and we thought it would be valuable for you folks to meet them this morning and have an opportunity to ask those folks questions. So we're going to lead with that. They're going to provide a brief presentation and then allow probably 45 minutes for dialogue back and forth. So certainly get your questions ready. They're ready to take on any question or issue that you might have. After a brief break, then I'll come back up. I want to provide a little update of some of the things happening at the business school, provide some of the issues that we are facing as we move forward to hopefully get your input on those as well. During lunch, we're fortunate today. We always find it to be increases the energy quite a bit in the room when we have our students join us. So at each of your tables, you're going to have a student join you as well. And we've asked 3 students this afternoon during lunch to provide their perspective and to share with you a little bit about some of the things that they have done in their time here at the business school as well. Then the afternoon sessions, we're going to go into our advisory council individual meetings, and those will be led obviously by the directors that you have of those particular councils. So again, we appreciate your being here this morning. Looking forward to a very productive day. And with that, I'm going to invite Father Peter and his leadership team to come up to the stage. Father Peter. Thank you.
Oh, watch. Yeah.
I'm Father Peter, just in case you don't know. And this is Steve Merritt, Michael Gill, Steve Scott. The video that you saw, I think, was...
This is for the taping.
Oh, the taping. Okay, thank you. I'm being taped. Thank you. The video you saw, I thought, was a great introduction. It was well done, but it was also a great introduction to actually what is happening all over the campus, because it really focused on the areas of the strategic plan. The strategic plan was approved by the Board of Trustees in December, and we are just in the process of kind of rolling it out. In your folders, there is a copy of the strategic plan that you can look at in your spare time and read all of those wonderful words. I'm going to summarize it a little, so please don't pull it out now and follow me, okay? Because you're going to say, that's not what it says here. And then I'm going to ask Steve squared here, and Mike to kind of throw in comments about their areas. Steve Fugali has actually been the person that I asked to head up the strategic plan. So Steve has been working very hard over the past 2 years now almost to formulate this plan with various groups on the campus, the President's Cabinet, as well as the Dean's Council and various faculty, students, staff. We've done a whole kind of town forums throughout the past year and a half of developing the plan. We also had a lot of help in the beginning in this process from McKinsey. And McKinsey gave us a great deal of help in gaining data, finding out information about the university, the kind of direction we wanted to go to, and they were very helpful in kind of asking the right questions to probe us into what direction we wanted to see Villanova moving. And some of the blockades we might experience or some of the areas of success we could actually develop as we move through the strategic plan. It goes out for 10 years. And it's in conjunction with the campus master plan as well, which is all of how the campus will grow. However, the campus master plan is really a 30-year plan. I don't expect to see it over. But it's a very flexible plan to see how we develop and move and what areas of the campus we can continue to develop to meet the needs of our faculty and students as well as the staff here. So I'll talk a little bit about the strategic plan. These 3 gentlemen will jump in their areas, and then we'll open it up for questions that you might have about it. And yes, we are willing to answer any questions you have. So, and I expect one to be asked sooner or later. The strategic plan is actually developed or set up in 5 different ways. We have 5 different imperatives. And those imperatives are each looking at a particular area of the university. All of the colleges, schools, divisions, departments of the university have been asked to join in with that plan and to look at their own areas as to how they might bring about in their particular college, school, departments this strategic plan, what they can do in order to incorporate themselves into the university's plan. So the university's plan is very overarching and covers a lot of big issues, and it is really up to the individual areas of the university to be more specific within those areas. And as I said, I think the video that was made for this presentation this morning really hit a lot of those areas, from student admissions to faculty development to graduate school programs to academic programs in the undergraduate program, to the needs that we have in order to continue to develop our resources here at the university. So those are basically the 5 areas. The first one deals with our academic undergraduate programs and how we will continue to develop those programs to create interdisciplinary studies, to create programs within each of the colleges or schools to answer the needs of undergraduate programs. We've had some very good success with our first-year program here, the freshman program, which has a course called ACS, Augustine and Cultural Seminar, and that is a 15-person seminar that goes over the course of 2 semesters for the freshmen. We've had a lot of success with it. The students really love it. It's an opportunity for them to really dialogue with the faculty member, and we're really looking at how we can expand that into the sophomore level, the junior level, as well as the senior level. And all the while looking at how each of our areas of academic excellence can contribute to those programs. So each of the deans of business, engineering, nursing, and arts and sciences have been working with the Vice President of Academic Affairs to really look at what kinds of programs we can develop and what kinds of interdisciplinary programs we can develop as well. To really enlighten or to spark the imagination of our students in terms of their academic pursuits, their knowledge, how they can continue to use various disciplines to inform them about their own particular area of interest. So the academic program is really the first part of the strategic plan and really the most important one for us, because we are an educational institution. That is why we're here. That is what we're about. And so the academic program must always receive prominence here, and the kinds of programs that we're offering to our students, and the way we are preparing them to move out of this world of Villanova into a bigger world and a very multidimensional world. So that's really our first emphasis. The second one deals with admissions, and it deals with the kind of students that we're bringing into the university. We have, through a lot of information that we've had and over the last several years of our enrollment statistics, we know we have many high caliber students that apply to the university, and we've discovered a lot through their application process, and whether they've chosen Villanova or whether they haven't chosen Villanova, what were the reasons for it. And of these high achieving students who apply here, but oftentimes or sometimes prefer to go to other schools, we've discovered some of the reasons why. And some of that deals with personal attention that we give to them in the admissions process, but also fundamentally the financial aid packages or scholarship programs that we are offering to these students. Many of the institutions we compete with, that we consider our peers, as well as our aspirant schools, have the ability to offer larger financial aid packages. So when it comes down to a choice of is it Villanova or is it Boston College, many times Boston College has the ability to offer them a larger financial aid package or more scholarship dollars, and logically the choice is I will go to Boston College, even though I love Villanova and I'd rather go to an Augustinian school. But no offense, Bill, but it's important for us to increase our financial assistance as well as the attention we give to those students. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to this Steve, who can tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do with that program.
Yeah, it's delightful to be here with everybody. Thank you, Father. I think in our area, as Father mentions, in admissions and financial aid through the strategic plan, we're clearly focused on three things right now. One is, as Father says, to increase the number of top-tier students. Just to put some numbers to that, we get about a yield of about 12% of the top-tier students who come to the university of those who we've accepted. We want to double that number over the next decade. We anticipate being able to do that really in a combination of two things. As Father says, to increase the amount of personal attention to students. We're going to deploy this year an alumni interviewing program. You've probably heard of some of those other programs at Georgetown and what have you. I think ours has a very unique and very distinctive flavor and will be incredibly effective once it's fully deployed. As Father also mentioned, finances is an important element in some of our top-tier students. As you all know, price and prestige and program all go together when doing any kind of marketing activity. Here at the university, we have now been, for the last 2 years, adding an additional $1 million to our need-based financial aid each and every year for the last, this will be the third year of that, for our freshman class. And we see those dollars starting to be effective. As Father says, we are the only one in that aspirant and peer group who's not meeting full financial assistance at this point in time, and we're moving over time toward that goal of being able to offer more competitive financial assistance to our students. I think the final part of what Father's describing in our effort is to make sure that Villanova does two things. Number one, remains reflective of the world as it exists. So we are very focused on making sure the university remains a place where people from all walks of life, whether they might be multicultural students, whether they be first-generation students, whether they be students who may, in fact, not have the kind of financial ability to be here, are able to still access and be part of our experience here at the university. I was here in 1978. It was a somewhat different place than it is today, but we think the character of a great university is the university that's not only reflective of the world as a whole, but also is the kind of place that provides the kind of access to people from all walks of life. And we're fixed on that as we move forward.
Thank you, Steve. The third area, academics and attracting qualified students to the university, are never going to be successful unless we have a very highly qualified faculty, and a faculty that is very interested in three things at the university. We evaluate the faculty on their areas of teaching, research and scholarship, and service to the university. That is a pretty standard component for any higher educational institution of how they evaluate faculty, but we know that in order to increase the academic programs and the excellence of our academic programs, we need to attract a faculty that is very interested in teaching, teaching the mission of the university, being involved in that mission, have a passion for teaching, but also have a passion for their research, and also are willing to serve the community in a number of different ways and serve their profession, their professional associations in many ways. So how we continue to attract that faculty, now we're coming into an era of higher education where the baby boomers, those people that have been teaching for a long time, and we have several at Villanova who have been here for many, many years, are coming to the time of retirement. And so as that group of people begin to leave the university, it's important for us to attract young, bright, enthusiastic faculty. They are highly sought after by all institutions around the country, and so it becomes a very competitive issue for us, both in types of salaries that we offer, teaching loads that we offer, abilities to do their research, scholarship work, and have the facilities for them, actually the classroom facilities, the technology, all of those things that are available to them in many other institutions. So it's important for us when we look at the kinds of faculty we want, that we're really looking for people that are passionate about their teaching, really enjoy being in the classroom. It's important for Villanova, it's always been important, and it will continue to be, that our students come in touch with full-time faculty members, that they're not meeting graduate assistants along the way, or they're not being taught by a large cadre of adjunct faculty, although adjunct faculty are very important to us and will always be a part of the institution. But it's important for us also to get our students in front of those full-time people that are doing cutting-edge research and scholarship in their field, and to incorporate the students into that research. In today's higher educational world, it's really becoming an important aspect to say to undergraduates, we need to offer you the opportunity to do research yourself and to be people that are engaged in that research. And faculty that can mentor them in that is very important to us. Along with that, and this had to do a lot with our national reputation and what we're trying to do with that reputation, we discovered that in our work with McKinsey that originally we were talking about going into a national level of institution, being classified as a national university. And we found that we just didn't have the resources to do that right now. And a lot of it had to do with our graduate programs. We have wonderful graduate programs. However, we don't have the number of doctoral students that we would need to really compete in that research national university kind of thing. Doctoral programs are very expensive, are very faculty intensive. They demand a one-on-one relationship with a PhD student, and it pulls the faculty away from undergraduate programs in order to pull them into the graduate programs. And so we made the decision that we would not necessarily add more PhD programs at this time, but rather we would lift the quality of the 3 PhD programs we presently have, possibly lift some of the numbers. We'll see what happens as we move along here. But to really pump a lot of energy into our graduate programs. And we have a number of graduate programs in all of the disciplines that we have. And it is really how we attract graduate students into the university and into our graduate programs. So it's how do we continue to improve the number of graduate programs we already have, as well as highlighting the 3 doctoral programs we have in philosophy, engineering, and nursing. So that's the third imperative that we have. The fourth imperative deals with our value proposition. How do we tell the story of Villanova? We realize that we have a lot of good things happening here. We have some wonderful students. We have dedicated faculty and staff. There is a real spirit here, and if you're, as graduates of the university, I think you have a sense of what I'm talking about. There's a very close-knit community here. As I mentioned last night, the turnout that we had for that vigil service was incredible, of students that came out to participate in that and really to support each other. We've discovered that that story isn't always told effectively to the outside world, and so how do we tell the Villanova story, and how do we get out our value proposition, and how do we brand the university? And so we're going through a process right now. We have a company that we've brought in, Neiman Associates, who are really helping us with our branding. And how do we get the message that we know about Villanova, or the spirit that we experience here at Villanova, how do we put that into effective branding to really let other people know exactly where we are, who we are, what we have to offer, and the kind of community that we are really developing here and that people really participate in. And that goes from the people that are presently here as well as to our alumni, and really extending that out. Some of our best ambassadors are our alumni, who go out from the institution into all corners of the world and really continue to tell the Villanova story, but allow people to experience the Villanova story through them. So the fourth area that we're looking at is that branding effort. How do we really support the value proposition of the university, and how we continue to allow that to be shared with others and make it very effective here as well, so that students really experience it, know it, and live it, and move out and share it with others. The last area, the fifth area of the strategic plan, really deals with you can't do any of this without money. And so it deals with building our endowment, building our alumni participation rates, as well as looking at how we continue to develop the facilities of the campus. We are going through a whole system. I'm going to let Mike actually talk about the development part of it, or the fundraising part of it, and we're preparing for a new campaign, but Mike can explain that more. But in terms of the facilities, we realize that we're very landlocked here. We don't have a whole lot of space left, and so we have to use that space effectively. So the campus master plan was really developed to allow us to see how it is that we can continue to improve the facilities at Villanova. And it's not to create, I think sometimes higher education can be perceived as creating country club atmospheres, you know, where We're putting in climbing walls and kayak streams through the campus, and you're offering every kind of food that you could possibly offer, and every 5 feet there's a yogurt stand and things like that. But that's not really what it's about. It's how do we create the facilities that we need to really educate our students in a holistic way. And so we've gone through some of that already. The nursing and law school have certainly been completed, and I'm very happy to report that we've just received gold standing for the law school in terms of gold lead standing. So we're very happy about that. And the law school has hung up all little gold buttons all over the place to pronounce that. But it's a wonderful facility. We've renovated the old law school. We've done some renovation on that, and undergraduate programs as well as career center, the career counseling center, the honors program, the alumni office have all moved into what many of you know as the old law school. It needs a lot of work, but right now they're happy, I hope. But we're also, Sullivan and Sheehan have had some renovations. They will continue to have renovations over the course of next summer, and next year those buildings will have all new air conditioning and heating units in them, and everybody's very excited about next year living there because when it's air conditioned they'll love it. But we're also in the process right now of creating a pedestrian experience on campus, or a pedestrian campus, that the main campus will be free of all cars. So once you come into the campus from Kennedy Hall up to Tollentine, that whole center from Bartley up to Tollentine as well will all be free of cars and will be only for pedestrians. It's going to mean changing some walkways, roadways around campus, allowing that kind of thing to happen. It's a huge undertaking for us, but what we've seen so far from the architects, it will really transform the experience of being on main campus. We also have a lot of plans to develop the other side of Lancaster Avenue, which is that huge parking lot, to make that, I like to refer to it as the Hamlet of Villanova. Originally, Villanova was referred to as the Hamlet of Villanova, and that it would have a series of residential living above retail, so there would be the university shop, various things geared towards our student body would be on the lower level, and the senior and junior apartment living would be above it. And the cornerstone of the whole Lancaster Avenue development will be a performing arts center. I promise you it will be there. I may be in it, dead. I mean, as you walk into the foyer, maybe don't step on that circle right there because he's buried under that. But we are going to, that's kind of the plan. We do have a lot of property over on the West Campus where the apartments are right now, but we have a covenant with the neighborhood that we cannot do anything development-wise back there until 2019. So there are plans to add some more things. So we do have space to develop, but it's how do we develop that space? In doing all of this, however, we need financial support for that, and the financial man will tell you about that. Sure.
Good morning, everyone. As I was hearing Father talk about kayak streams and climbing walls, which wouldn't be in my sort of skill set, I was thinking maybe West Campus, converting it into at least an executive golf course with Dundale as our clubhouse. And, it follows the Stanford and Duke model. They have some high-end courses out that way as well. But that did make it into the first draft of the strat plan. Actualizing the vision, how do we help pay for Villanova's great ambitions for its future, really comes down to our ability to raise private gift support. I'd like to take you just for a few minutes through some sequential steps we have taken or are about to take that I believe are helping us get on that way. The first is the timing really couldn't be better. Villanova, economically speaking, that could be debated, I suppose, but we completed our last campaign in December of 2007, as most of you will recall, and raised $303 million, the most ambitious campaign in Villanova's history. With Father's arrival and embarking upon a campus master plan and a strategic plan that began in May of 2008, we've been able to take that sort of breath in between campaigns, but doing a lot really in university-wide planning. The part of that planning has been a significant investment on the part of the university in the development operation, that in order for us to be competitive, in order for us to really progress with our ability to raise annual revenue to drive our participation, et cetera. We've been doing a lot of benchmarking all across our various departments across campus, development being one of them, and how we stack up against who our competitors are, the same way we were looking at our admission structure, et cetera. So we have done a lot of building. We've in the past 20 months or so, we've hired 18 people. We've created a new senior team of management, but we've also invested in the process or the structure. So really becoming much more aggressive with our telemarketing efforts, our direct mail, starting to dabble more directly in social media and soliciting our larger donor base in those ways. This year, as the strategic plan was coming into final focus and was ratified by the Board of Trustees in December of '09, we began planning in lockstep with that process to really start testing some of what we think are the saleable highlights of the strategic plan as part of an overall feasibility study for a next campaign. So we created, working with the Board of Trustees, we developed a small subgroup of the board that we called the COG, the Campaign Organizing Group, to assist us with identifying what we think those saleable highlights are, potential timeline for the campaign, counting guidelines, and thinking about some campaign volunteer infrastructures that we would like to employ as we get further along the road. Then we created a draft prospectus for our campaign. Father Peter and I spent a lot of time last January through June traveling about the country, and in a process that ultimately involved almost 1,600 alumni. We conducted 22 leadership briefings, as we call them, around the country, all over the country, in small groups of 15 and 20, and then conducted email surveys, telephone surveys, face-to-face interviews with a total group of about 1,600 people. Many of you here in this room participated, hosted, or played some role in that process to really start testing what we think are the components, the endowment needs, our capital needs, and growing our annual fund and growing our participation rate. So that's sort of a lot of the building blocks towards the future and the campaign and actualizing the vision of the strat plan. While we were planning, we're also raising money. There's been, this isn't building a development operation that can sustain us for this campaign and beyond is an evolution and not a revolution. We're not standing pat saying, give us a few years and give us this and give us that, and I promise you in a few years we'll start raising money. It's win now. And I think we had a really good, our fiscal year 10 numbers, which concluded May 31st, is a really solid indicator. As you all know, it was very difficult economic circumstances. We really bucked the trend in higher education. We closed our fiscal year up 22%. We raised just under $49 million. Some other numbers, we increased our donor participation by almost 2,000 donors at the very high end and at the lowest end. And at the lower end, the annual fund gifts, trying to capture folks when they're young to become habitual and elevated donors so they can become our major donors of the future. And that's probably one area where Villanova has truly been lacking. There are a lot of folks like you who are not yet as loyal and wedded to the university. They think very highly of Villanova, but they're not engaged. And that's the challenge of this coming campaign as well. So we were up in telemarketing. Small steps like going from a 6-month-a-year telemarketing effort to an 11-month-a-year telemarketing effort, which resulted in a 40% increase in gifts that came in just through telemarketing. We were leaving too much time on the table. We raised gifts of 35 gifts of $100,000 and above, including 5 gifts of 7 figures or more. And I think the real nice piece in some of those numbers, there's a group in there that had been not nearly as engaged as we wanted them to be and have over the last couple of years become engaged. So I sort of refer to them as emerging leaders. They're not just the same old names, that we really feel like we're starting to make a dent in broadening the spectrum of alumni engagement and support. Some new initiatives, everyone I think here knows of Bob Melchione, who served on the Dean's Advisory Committee for a number of years. He's a class of '69 alum, and he's come on board as as a real seasoned professional whose sort of development's free safety, but part of very project-driven. But one of the biggest projects Bob has undertaken is a new initiative called the President's Leadership Circle, which really began its genesis in December of '09, just as we were thinking about the feasibility study, creating an advisory board to Father Peter, who would assist with the 5 pillars of the strategic plan in very targeted ways. We had our first meeting in April. We're having our second meeting on October 19th, and that's a group of just under 50 people, 48 people, a number of whom are emerging leaders, and others, former board members, who have tons of institutional knowledge, but perhaps have been disengaged or on the periphery, and we really need to leverage that institutional knowledge for all of our benefits. As far as this year is concerned, we certainly want to build on our financial numbers, but we now also, as we've conducted the feasibility, and we actually just got the contents of the feasibility study back this week, but we'll be bringing that to the campaign organizing group on the 7th of October, and then we'll be bringing it to the full board on the 11th of October at our next board meeting. And that will really underpin what we're going to be doing over the next 8 or 9 years. The campaign itself isn't going to be a live, living, public thing until we're halfway home or more. But for all of you on the inside, it will become, if it hasn't already, it will become a very living, breathing thing for Villanova. The other thing that we're doing, last year we did the small group feasibility, leadership briefings. This year, one of our main thrusts will be taking the strategic plan, which every alumnus has received in some form, electronic or physical, or have heard Father talk about it. But we're actually going to take it on the road and unveil it in a very sort of, in keeping with Father's background, in a very dramatic way. We will go to 30 cities. It's a road show. It's an international road show. We will go to 30 cities. We're starting here on October 22nd, the President's Club reception on Homecoming Eve. And then, like any good rock band, we're going to go overseas to work out the kinks, and we'll hit Dublin and London, and then we'll come back and hit all of our cities, pretty much every major city in the country. Really as a way to really make the strategic plan a living thing and to engage at every level and connect it very much. It's not just an alumni relations initiative. It's very much a university-wide and a university advancement initiative. That this strategic plan, we're looking to achieve wholesale buy-in and full support. So it's going to keep us busy, but that is really sort of some of the steps that we're taking that will support the 5th pillar of the strategic plan.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to let Steve, since he's the orchestration of all of this, tell you a little bit about where we are right now with putting all together the strategic plan and what's happening in terms of the individual units on campus, because it's a very important thing for us that we have university-wide buy-in to this strategic plan. So,
thank you. Good morning. Actually, being a co-curricular organization supporting the imperatives Father talked about, I can give you a couple of perspectives on it, but I'd like to highlight a couple things or further elaborate on what Father talked about. The development of the strategic I don't know if everybody can hear me. The development of the strategic plan included literally hundreds of people on campus, as well as thousands of people off campus, prospective students, parents, alumni, etc. As the CIO of the university, it was an incredible opportunity to understand what the expectations are and what our trajectory or what we're trying to accomplish or achieve. It gave us a unique opportunity to understand not only where we are, but where we want to go, and then therefore plan to it. As Father mentioned, all the areas on campus, now that the plan itself is formally approved, have actually gone through what we call a strategic alignment process, meaning lining up all of our annual or tactical plans to align to specific elements or the 5 strategic imperatives Father talked about. So speaking specifically as for the IT organization, having heard what the expectations are and where we want to go, I can highlight a couple of things that support, for example, what Steve and Mike talked about. So in student recruiting, we were able to, under Steve's leadership, launch a prospective student portal in order to provide information to potential students interested in coming to Villanova. It's called MyNova. Give them targeted information about the university as they're going through the decision-making process. Also to support Mike's area, and the business school is well aware of this. We've been developing and have actually implemented pieces of CRM technology, customer relationship management, as a front end to facilitate Mike's operation and other elements of the university, inclusive of the business school, managing our interactions with all constituents involved with the university. We've also been deploying new business intelligence tools in order to use the information that we have about the constituents involved in the university and address and analyze and be able to target and plan better. I would also note the value proposition Father talked about, or telling the Villanova story. He mentioned, and Mike mentioned, social media. You can probably see through our website, through our college websites and university websites, we've increasingly used social media as a means to engage various elements of the community. As we rebrand, obviously social media as well as the website itself need to then take the rebranding effort and the messaging that we're developing and project that back out into the community, so we know we have that all teed up. We talked about graduate programs and optimizing the ability not only of what's conveyed via the website, but also streamlining the application process. Those are specific examples of where technology has had the benefit of listening to the development of the strategic plans and figuring out what we can do to facilitate execution. So all of our strategic alignment activities over the past 6 months since board approval have been oriented at trying to move as much of our capacity, if you will, human and financial, to line up to efforts supporting the 5 strategic imperatives.
In all of this, it covers, I want to emphasize, it covers every aspect of the university. So everyone is looking at how they can contribute to this, or what we need to focus on in terms of building the strategic plan of the university. So everybody from student life to athletics, to the academic departments, to the bookstore, to the dining services, to technology, to all areas of the university are being looked at and evaluated in terms of this. So, and as we move into the campaign, we will also establish priorities. So from academics to athletics to student life, there will be various priorities established in terms of how do we continue to bring forth the message and the wonder of Villanova. So we're open to questions if you have any. If not, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. You might want to turn these mics on so that you have them. Oh, okay. You're going to take the rest into the audience. Oh, that one's going to stay. Yeah, they're both working.
I could be heard without Father Dan Bathon, Dean's Advisory Council. Mike, one of the major emphasis has been the annual giving issue and interaction with our peer schools. You mentioned a $49 million, I assume that's not just annual giving, a number of progress. But how do we do in the past fiscal year, and how soon do you think we can get that participation level up to be, at a level with our peers?
Sure. We actually did the annual fund is, every money all the dollars that we raise every year are our annual dollars. We also refer to the annual fund as our unrestricted dollars, which is where most of our gifts on the smaller scale usually get directed to. We had a very good year. We went from $4.1 million a year ago, which was better by goal by $100,000 to $6 million last year. Again, and the participation rate is based on undergraduate donors, the participation of undergraduate donors. And that's connected to the U.S. News World Report rankings. There's a 5% weight on alumni participation as an overall mark of our standing. We grew it from 17.4% to 19% this year. What we hope to do over the course of the strategic plan is to grow it to approximately 30%, at least 30%. That would put us ahead of Georgetown and Boston College. Boston College is about 24%. Georgetown is, I believe, about 26%. Interestingly enough, Notre Dame, which is sort of there's two great schools that really do participation really, really well, among others. Princeton, which is around 60 and change, and then Notre Dame and Holy Cross, who are always very close to the 50% or 51% mark. Notre Dame actually dropped to about 46% this year. Maybe it was Charlie Weiss's fault, I'm not sure. But let's hope it continues plummeting. Actually, we actually did a site visit to Notre Dame just about 2 years ago, and they were very, very helpful. You know, while they're our competition in fundraising, they're really not our competition because we have our own constituent base for the most part. So, 2% growth every year is actually pretty significant because you're adding 1,600 new donors or new potential donors every year to your denominator. So just to keep even, you have to keep pushing. The other thing that we're doing, we've worked closely with Bob Burns, who's as many of you know, is the president of the Alumni Association, and our Alumni Relations Office to put in place a regional chapter challenge, which would start pitting our various Villanova clubs against each other. We're doing some of those things in athletics, where we're looking out at the various sports and creating a competition. And we're also kind of calling out alumni, trying to be much more aggressive in saying, everyone loves Villanova, but you need to support it. And we sort of have that pleasant obligation of giving back. I think also, one of the things we're doing with some help from a number of people in this room, Bill Donnell, Ed Welsh, who's, by the way, is the chair of the new President's Leadership Circle. We feel it's time that we look at centers where we have tremendous numbers of Villanova alums and very successful Villanova alums and having people on the ground. So part of our hiring strategy for this year is to put somebody on the ground, at least one person to start, but likely it'll grow to two, where we'll have a regional director for Villanova.
In New York.
In New York. We just have thousands of alums there, particularly in the financial industry. And right now, I think our approach has been good, but it's a little scattershot. And to have somebody there visible every day, I think will allow us to facilitate and generate volume and get people to the point where they're making annual gifts, President's Club gifts, but then looking at companies like Bill Donnell's model at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, where we have 350 alumni, and we can start carving out, or at Goldman Sachs, where we have 90 or so, Credit Suisse, where we have actually about 90 as well, where we can create targeted approaches to the individuals in there and then leverage all the relationships in a much more strategic manner. So those are some of the steps we're taking.
Good morning. I'm not sure to whose attention I should direct my observation and question, actually. The first observation, and it's around the strategic imperative about the next generation of students and focus on diversity, which I think is right on target. My observation is that as I look around the room at my colleagues and I put myself in this category, we are not a very diverse group of people. So I guess the personal challenge for me as an individual to the center directors and the members of each of the advisory councils, that we really need to be looking out for how we can find people to come to our own advisory councils, reflecting that diversity of the community we live in. And we can start with getting more women in the room. My question is about the student population, and what are the efforts underway, or what's planned in terms of trying to recruit a more diverse student population?
That would be Steve.
Thank you very much for your question. Let me see if I can give you some perspective. I've been here for 2 decades at the university. About 20 years ago, 5% of our students at the university were students of color. 10 years ago, about 10%. Today, we're at almost about 21% of our students. 20 years ago, we had virtually only a few undergraduates who came from international locations. Today, it's about 3%. So we're making some progress. Though we, within the strategic plan and under Father's leadership, we don't think that where we are today is good enough. So we have a full-time person in our admissions office who's focused on this issue. We do not only just a national campaign for students now, but we do an international campaign so that we can touch both the lives of domestic students but international students as well. As a matter of fact, one of our staff people is in China right now We also have a very important affiliation with the National Hispanic Institute out of Austin, Texas. Over the last 7 years, we've brought 800 talented Hispanic students to campus in the summer who have been introduced to the university. 25 of those students have been here at the university as students with us now. And these are high potential, high performing Hispanic students, one of whom is now at Harvard's medical school. So it's through these outreach efforts, it's through our affiliations with groups like the National Hispanic Institute, but it's also through, frankly, our focus on being able to provide them access through financial assistance. And again, through the University and Father's leadership, we now provide the highest amount of our financial aid assistance to our students of color and to our top tier students. We're going to continue to do that because what we want to be able to do is in that realm be able to compete one-on-one with the best schools in the country. I think our progress has been over the last few years extraordinary, but I think the potential for us as we reach out further and further into the international marketplace is going to provide us with a whole new set of opportunities which we are really looking forward to right now. But it is a focus, it is an aggressive campaign, it's backed up with university dollars, and I think we, over time, are going to make some great progress. But it's a real issue for us here at the university, and we're staying with it. The other part of it, too, as you know, it's not only important to bring the diverse populations to the university, but what's really important is to keep our diverse populations here at the university. As you know, a 4-year experience is quite some experience for any young person who might come to the university. And I'm very pleased to say that we right now have some of the highest graduation rates for multicultural students in our peer group. We want to do better in that. But overall at the university, we've hit an interesting threshold this year. As you might know, graduation rates are reported in 6-year segments. But let me give you our metrics on keeping students here. And again, with the understanding that we have the largest and most diverse student population in our history. We bring back 95% of our freshmen to their sophomore year. You may know that the national rate is about 40%. Within our peer group, we are right there with our peers in some of the most important colleges and universities in the country. We graduate 85% of our students here at the university in 4 years, which again is a very, very strong performance when you think about it. But when you look at our 6-year graduation rate, part of our goal, and the university's goal over the last few years, has been to get to 90%. And this year we are graduating 90% of the students who joined us in a 6-year period of time. Now, when you think about 6 years, you're probably thinking we have undecided students, we have students that can't get through in time. But remember what's also happened to our culture here. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've developed more bachelor or master's programs. So we have more students that are here for an extended period of time because of their completing a dual degree program. We have more students who are doing double degrees. We have more students who are studying abroad for terms. So it's normal for their time to be extended a bit here. So we are in a very strong position in terms of graduation rates all along. And frankly, it's those kind of numbers and that kind of confidence that when we go out on the road, that really is very attractive to particularly first-generation students, students from diverse backgrounds, and students who may not be as familiar with the university as we'd like them to be. So I think we're on a great trajectory. We just got to keep it moving forward. And thanks for your question.
Yes, Al.
A couple times athletics was mentioned.
I knew it.
Athletics was mentioned. Can you give us any update on what's going on with the football discussion and how that fits into the future plan?
Well, I'm surprised it took the third question, actually. It has been a hot topic, and I will try to put it into context for you. It is a question that the board, the leadership of the board, came to a decision a couple of months ago, maybe about a month ago, actually, is when it happened. We were already in the process of evaluating our athletic programs, all of our athletic programs, and the committee of athletics of the board, as well as a group of people in the athletic department, were creating all kinds of scenarios, various scenarios for our sports programs. Right now, we have 24 varsity sports. That is a high number. We needed to kind of look at what directions we were taking with them. So the question of football is a major one for us because of the number of people that need to be on a football team. And not only the number of students on the team, but also the number of support staff and coaching staff that they need. So we were already in the conversation about what we were going to do or what kinds of scenarios, whether moving up, moving down, staying where we are, all of those kinds of issues. Over the summer, as if you are a sports enthusiast, you may know that the various collegiate programs, particularly the Bowl Conference Series, were beginning to look at their numbers. And it started with the Big Ten and the Pac-10 and the Mountain 10 and the Southern 12 and all of those kinds of things. But they started looking at, there's actually 6 conferences that control the bowl game series, and they were looking at some of them were looking at expansion to bring up their numbers and creating what has been referred to recently as the super conferences, where they would have more teams involved, they would have more dollars available to them in terms of television revenue, they would be more appealing in terms of television time and all of that. Football is really, for the media, is the big game. Basketball, as much as people like basketball, the television stations, the television networks look at that as, you know, there are loads of basketball games, but it's those football games that they can get the largest number of viewers on. So they started going through all of this. There was a lot of fear that the Big East was going to be attacked, so to speak, and that there were certain teams, certain schools within the Big East that were going to be pulled out of the Big East. They were going to be made offers. And it was a great fear that the Big Ten was going to come after Rutgers, Syracuse, Connecticut, Pitt, West Virginia, which is a large number of the schools that play football in the Big East Conference. So there was a lot of kind of positioning going on, and the presidents of the various 16 schools of the Big East Conference started all these negotiations. The Big East is going through right now a whole television renewal contract, so there was a lot of discussion about it. That didn't happen, as you know. So it was just about to happen, there was a lot of fear that it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. The Big East is very interested in maintaining its strength and maintaining a structure within the Big East that gains for the schools, particularly the football schools, the highest possible revenue television-wise. So they're renewing their contract, they're negotiating the contract. They would like, the Big East would like to add at least 2 more schools to their football rosters because of the fact that conference game scheduling is difficult with only 8 schools. Villanova, of the Big East 16 schools, is the only other school that has a football team that's at a level right below the Division I teams. So they came to us, the commissioner of the Big East came to us and said, you know, we've asked this question before. We know you're going through this athletic analysis right now. Would you consider looking at the question of going to Division I football in the Big East? And the leadership of the board said, well, we are considering it, we're looking at it, and yes, we'll take it more seriously right now because of their need. It's a huge question for us. It's a huge question. And there's a lot of things there's a lot of ripple effect to it, should it happen. There's a lot of pros and cons that need to be weighed. There's a lot of situations in terms of our facilities, the kind of facilities we have. Radnor Township, when I sent out that emails announcing this, the first people I heard from were the township commissioners who said, you are not building a stadium here. Get over it right now. So, and we never intended, we knew that that wasn't going to happen. So it's where we would play, how far away is it, how do you get, so there's a lot of questions in it, but it's something we were already engaged in. We have, the board has just decided to escalate that time frame in order to answer the Big East. We have not, much to all of the stories you read in the news and the sports pages, we have not been made an offer by the Big East. They have merely asked us to think about it. So there has been no financial offer made, there's been no considerations made, there's been no, and they are looking at adding other football-only schools. so that they do not want to add more schools to the whole sports lineup because it will become a nightmare in terms of scheduling all of those. But they are seriously looking at adding more football schools. Since they're looking at that and they're doing this whole television contract, they said, would you think about it? We're thinking about it. But it's a large question for us, and it's something that the board is really going to have to wrestle with in terms of how it's done, if it's done, when it's done. It wouldn't happen right away because of NCAA regulations and all of those kinds of things. And if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I wouldn't have known the answer. So you should be impressed how much I've learned about sports. But really, the premier sport at Villanova has been and will continue to be men's basketball. It is really what has been the premier sport for us. And a lot of the question deals with, I think for a lot of people, is what will happen to the Big East, and therefore what will happen to men's basketball. So a lot of the things I've heard from people are, we need to protect men's basketball, and we need to protect the Big East. My experience of the Big East presidents is that none of them are looking to dissemble the Big East. They are very, very committed to making the Big East successful. So. That may change in November when we all meet, but yes, Dan.
Tuition is going up rapidly at all schools. Villanova is no exception. I think what going to Villanova all in now somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year.
50.
What's the breaking point?
Yeah.
You're coming out now with students have loans, parents take loans. Is there a breaking point for Villanova and other universities?
Oh, most definitely. You know, it is a question we take very seriously. We look at it, we examine it every year. This year was really the lowest tuition increase that we have ever placed, or that we've ever put in place, because we realize the burden that it creates for families. It is also a huge question for higher education, not only private higher education, but now it's becoming a major issue for public education as well, as states pull back more and more dollars from their state institutions. So, you know, that Penn State is coming close to $30,000 a year. So they're not far behind us. It is a huge question for higher education, and there is a breaking point. I mean, there is a point that you're going to say, that people are going to say, I'm not going to pay that, I can't pay that. And so they're going to make other options. They're going to take other options, starting out at community colleges and only going to 2 years to a 4-year school, et cetera, et cetera. So we really need to look at it. The way we can reduce it or stabilize it is by building up our own endowment and by being able to give out more financial dollars or more financial assistance to people, or being able to put more of those dollars from our endowment into our operating budget. Right now, we are very tuition dependent. So it is important for us to have a certain number of undergraduates paying tuition here in order for us to operate. And we need to pull away from that. So it is really through the building up our endowment, the building up of our scholarship monies, that we will be able to say, you know, tuition increases will not happen or will be very, very minimal. But you get into this, it's kind of like an arms race, though, with other schools, because we look at what other schools, and in our peer group, we sit right in the middle, kind of tuition. So the thing that has happened now, schools that have pulled back or said we're reducing our tuition have faced a situation of really struggling to get enrollment because it's perceived that something is wrong. You know, why did you reduce tuition? Something's going on here. So it's a very, very touchy subject, but it's certainly a subject that needs to be addressed by each and every institution of higher education, particularly private schools. It is just getting to a point where students are coming out of here with an incredible amount of debt already on their shoulders. And we have to find ways to reduce that. And the ways of it is that we become more self-sufficient and not so dependent on tuition dollars. And it's all comes back to fundraising, you know. guess I stunned you with my sports knowledge. Jim, anything? Well, on behalf of the four of us and everyone else on the administration and faculty and staff of Villanova, we thank you. If you're so inclined, I'd be happy to talk to you. Or if you know of anybody that would be so inclined, I'd be happy to talk to you. Or if you want to divide it amongst yourselves, I'd be happy to talk to you. But we're very positive about where Villanova is right now. I'm very, very enthusiastic to kind of get this message out. I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity for us to really engage the Villanova community. And the Villanova community is very eager to be engaged, and that makes me very pleased. And I am honored to continue to be the face of this institution. It holds a very special place in my very pleased with how we can continue to serve this institution and continue to build on the dream of a very few Augustinian friars that started all this in 1842. So we've had a lot of help over the years, and we continue to be committed to making sure that the mission of Villanova remains Catholic and Augustinian, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Steve and Mike for taking time. Hardball questions that Father, other than that, but hopefully we'll have some time to dialogue with Father Peter as we continue. Okay, I'm wired up here. What we're going to do now is, why don't we take a break for about 15, 20 minutes. We want you to get a chance to be able to chat with each other. And then what I want to do when we come back is building on the university strategic plan. I want to share with you where we're at in the business school, the process that we went through, lay out some of the challenges that we face within our own strategy and within the context of the university, which I think will lay a pretty good foundation for your discussions later this afternoon in the advisory council. So why don't we reconvene back here at 10:45. Thank you.